everybody, it's Jackie with ABC Creations. Today I'm going to be working on some arm sleeves on a Carhartt jacket. Now I've done a couple of these for the customer already. These are some extras that I'm being swapped out a couple at a time, and then we do some more. So I originally did their chest logo. We had to put it on the right chest because there's a pocket over here and my hoops don't fit in here and it won't fit over the arm of my machine. So we did it over here. But we're going to do on this opposite side here on the sleeve a vendor logo for them. So I'm going to show you today on this video how I do that. On the previous design, as you can see on the inside, I used black stabilizer and black bobbin to kind of minimize the appearance when the jacket is open. So I'm going to do the same thing on the actual sleeve. My design is about a 3x3. And I'm using the Mighty Hoop 4 1/4 by 13 inch magnetic. It is actually more of like a 3 3/4 stitch field inside of the hoop. That reason being is that you need about a 10 to 20 millimeter buffer on each side for your needle bar. And then the interior of here is actually only 4 1/8. So, you know, keep that in mind when you are trying to use these. Also on the red line machine, which is what I have, the commercial 15 needle, the 1501, the 4 1/4 by 13 is the largest you want to get, because if you get the 4 1/4 by 16, the pantograph on the red line cannot move the full extent of the 16 inches back, so it won't come to the front of your hoop. So I went ahead with the 13 and it fits perfect front to back no matter what. So I'll go ahead and get started. All I'm going to do is cut some Metro stabilizer. This is the black cutaway, and I did get this really cool sample pack of stabilizer from them. Basically I'm using this one. It's the cutaway 80 grams, and they have some other ones. They have a 75 in white, a 90 in white, which is pretty thick. Then you have some hydro-soluble 35 gram, which is kind of like, if you can see that there, it's like a mesh or fiber. Then they also have, which I'm excited about, is this new one, which is their Solufilm. I use this a lot. So a 25 gram Solufilm is awesome. It's pretty durable. It's actually not as thin as the Joanne Pellin water soluble, the Solufilm. So I kind of like this. I can't wait to give this one a try. And then they've got some other here. They got the Tearaway 52 gram, Tearaway 76 gram, and then they have a Tearaway 100 gram as well. This is pretty thick too. You can kind of hear it when you flip it. So I'm going to be using the black cutaway 80 grams, and then I'm using also some magnetic black bobbins, Filtech. Again, I have a red line, so I'm using the Magnaglide, and I use black for this project, so as you can see. And then the side with the little black thing is my magnet that goes into the machine. This is the side that sticks out. So I'll go ahead and cut some of these pieces pretty much close to the size of the hoop. And now I do have the Akita hooping station, which is, you know, kind of a sticky material here, not too much. And then it's actually magnetic, so it works out really well with these Magna hoops because I can set them on there and they don't really move. So just gonna, you know, measure roughly here. I give it a couple of inches just in case for the overlap of the hoop. And then remove it. And I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this to save your materials. This is how I do it. And then I need 3 jackets for right now, so I'm actually going to need probably 2 pieces of this and then just cut them in half. So here we go. And then what I just do with these to get the 2 half pieces that I need is just kind of fold them over, you know, crease it, scissors in, pull down towards the floor as I cut. Sometimes it works, sometimes I get a little bit of trouble. There we go. And then that's it for my stabilizer. That's really all I should need is 1 layer. The design may be 13,000 stitches, but a majority of them are in certain sections. And unless that one section is over 10,000 stitches, you really don't need that extra stabilizer. So I've got 4 square cutouts now for the jackets. And I'm going to use obviously one of these to go in here. So this is the tricky part because I don't actually have this smaller Akita hooping station that actually works really well with sleeves. It's literally probably the size of this hoop. So it's perfect because you just put the hoop on here like this, and then your garment or whatever it is can just slide right over that hooping station, but I don't have it. So what I have to actually do is measure the coat where I want the placement to be, and then I have to kind of eyeball it and try to get this in there straight. I don't recommend that, but if you do have to do it my way, just make sure you triple check that you're centered, you're straight, you're as close as possible. But I'll show you how I do it, and you can give it a try if you'd like. All right, so one thing to notice on these Carhartts, I don't know if you can see here, let me double check. Yep. Okay, this seam here on the shoulder is actually not centered over the shoulder. So what I have to do is basically hold the jacket up like as if someone was wearing it. And now you can leave it open. I personally close it just to make sure I'm centered. There we go. Just at least enough because I still have to be able to get in there. All right, and so what I want to do is just kind of hold it up like as if, you know, somebody's wearing this coat. And if I did, it would be more like this. Okay, so then I'm going to hold this and just follow my arm down. And this is going to be my center point on my sleeve. So I go ahead and I take some push pins. And I'm going to mark this as my center spot right here. So when I turn this jacket sideways now to look at the sleeve, I know where that center line actually is compared to this seam that is going to completely throw me off. So now I can open up the jacket. Move this out of the way here. And take a view here at the arm sleeve. And what I'm going to do is, you can see on the Carhartt, some of them have the Carhartt logo here in the wrist. I try to line that up centered with that center pin. So that way I know my sleeve is centered without stabbing myself here. Okay. Which, you know, that's pretty good right about there. And then that way when they're wearing it and the logo is, you know, wherever it's going to be here roughly, it's going to naturally fall on the arm in the right spot, versus if I were to line it up with this or something else or try to straighten this and guess, would have been a nightmare. At least this way, even if it's off a little bit, it'll still fall with the natural arm, which makes it look more natural and correct in placement. So next what I do is on the garment, or this specific one, is from this top seam line here right at my center. I know some people say that they only measure about 3 inches down. However, if I do that here, my design is 3 inches by 3 inches roughly. So if I measure 3 inches down as my center placement and then bring this down to 2 inches, my design is going to be quite high. So what I did for mine, and you can do this for yours if you want, but take into consideration your design height, how tall it actually is going to be. So for mine, I actually did 5 inches down. So I put my finger here for now, or a pin right about there. And that's where I measured it. So now if my design is 3 by 3 and I bring this down to the middle point, which would be a 2, or I'm sorry, 1.5. God, I can't count today. So 1.5 is the halfway point. My design is going to sit here, which I think looks a little bit nicer sitting here at a 3 by 3 than it would sitting way up here. So I went 5 inches down from the shoulder seam. And then and that's for a 3-inch design. You know, obviously you want to take into account how big your height of your design is. So now comes the fun part, like I said. So what I did is I will make sure that my center point here stays here. And I always know the center mark is the one that's closest to the head of the pin. So even if I stick it through any which way, it's going to be centered there. I know to look at this too when I'm hooping, because that's my center line. So I want to make sure that even though I'm hooped in the hoop, that this is all pretty much lined up. And then the other trick is that the design in the machine, because it is stitching here, I had to flip the design upside down so that this heavy portion of the jacket goes into the machine instead like this, so that this hangs off the machine and the only thing on it is the sleeve. So I actually have it upside down to fit here, and then that means that my hoop has to go in upside down as well. So that's how I'll show you how I do that now. So for that, I don't want to have it furthest forward, just so it doesn't pull or stress on the actual sleeve. So I kind of use it closer to the bottom of the hoop. That will be towards the back of the machine. That way it has more room to freely move. So I put my stabilizer here, and then what I do is I feed it through, and like I said, this is where that Akita hooping station will really come in handy. If you have the sleeve one, because it's smaller, you can just do this and pull it down. And also, because this is magnetic, you can use the magnets that come with it to hold your stabilizer in place, and that way it won't move. For my purpose, I can't do that because I don't have that hooping station. So what I do is I pull out my hooping station just a little bit here. And like I said, this is going to go in this way with the hoop here, the latch. So I'm going to want it closer to this section of my hoop, not the front section, because it's going to be harder to pull and move when it's at the full extent. So I'm going to go back here. So what I'll do is I'll take these off, and then I have to try and keep my stabilizers as centered as I possibly can, and I kind of push this off a little bit while keeping it somewhat straight with this. And you can actually put these here for now so they don't fall off your hoop, because your hoop is magnetic, as you can see. That just hopped right onto it like that. All right, and I'm gonna lightly maneuver my stabilizer and sleeve right over it. Should be about here. And then once you at least know it's in there and where you need it to be roughly, you can take out these little magnets. And then I make sure this guy is pretty centered with the center of the hoop, which it's not. So I want to, kind of maneuver it a little bit here. And again, I am going to check this, that the Carhartt logo at the end of the sleeve is also straight. So I'm going to put this on here for now. And then I'm going to maneuver it around, and I'm going to take a look at it and see what we're dealing with. All right. So as you can see, this is like my center point. This is here. So we're kind of on an angle, which is not good. So you can kind of, give yourself a little tug here. Straighten it all out, and as you can see, it's it's going to hold it nice and tight. And then, like I said, I want to pull down my sleeve as well here and make sure that this is still in the center spot, so that when I come up and I start stitching in here, we're stitching accurately. And I put my hoop in backwards, I think, here. Oh no, it's right. Okay, it is backwards on purpose. I told you that. Okay. So this was the needle center point right here. This is the center point right here. So it's a little off center from this and a little off center from this, which is perfect. That makes it look good. And then, like I said, I have, the Carhartt pretty centered here too as well. So the only other thing to check now is to make sure that that stabilizer that I put in here is in here. And it is. So I'm just going to pull it a little bit more taut here. Last thing I need is for the stabilizer not to be in there correctly, because then that's kind of pointless, defeats the purpose. Okay, you can see. I don't know if you guys can see that here. This is the stabilizer right here. And there it is. So now all I'm going to do at this point is go load it up onto the machine and put it in how it should, and I'll show you how I do that. See if I can bring you guys down here. You can see the one on the floor there I did as a sample a while back to make sure that we were good. Okay. So here we go. Now, like I said, the only part I want in the actual machine is this sleeve right here. So I'm going to go ahead and insert the sleeve over the actual center arm here. And just feed it through. And at the same time, once I get that pretty much as far in as I can, I'm going to start to put the hoop lockets into the brackets, into the arms. So now, okay, so now we've got it on the machine. You can see it's kind of pulling in the front here. That's okay. And the design is upside down on purpose because if you look at the, see if you can see this here, the design there is upside down on purpose because if you look at the way this is hooped, that's exactly how it's going to stitch. This is the shoulder, so the top of the design will be up here and then the bottom will be that way, so it's perfect. So the next thing I do is I just set my machine needle to 1. So now I know where my center of 1 is for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and it's on no hoop right now, which I want it to be because I didn't set up my Mighty hoops yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my number 1 needle to that center point of that design. Or where I set the center point, I should say. So it should be close to here. Let's move it over. Okay, so if you look, I'm basically on that first needle hole closest to the head pin. That's the center line that I gave myself. So now to make sure that I have room, I go ahead and I do an outline check of the whole design to make sure that I'm not going to smack the sides of this hoop while I'm stitching. And notice I'm not pulling my needle bar all the way down. If I did, that'd be a big problem. And it looks like I am 100% totally clear. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the pin because I know I'm on center. Give it a little rub just in case there's a needle hole. I'm going to set up my colors really quick on the machine, which are red for the background. Give me 1 second here, guys. Mine is black. Okay. All right. So for the design, the first part is the red background, which is the main portion of the logo. Then there's a white section, and then we'll use black, which is the logo as well for the rest of the wording. Okay. So everything's all set up. I got my center point set up. My sleeve under here, underneath the machine. You want to make sure that underneath that arm there. You know, when you check right under here that you're not getting any, it's not stuck on anything, that's completely clear. Another way you can check is reach inside the jacket from underneath and double check that it's clear under there as well. You do not want to catch any other part of the sleeve in that hoop while you're stitching. If you do and you didn't put it over the arm correctly, you will stitch the sleeve closed and you're replacing your customer's garment. I hope that makes sense. So without further ado, I'm going to check, make sure my stabilizer is there. Looks good. I already checked the outline, and we should be good to go at this point. Correct logos on here, colors are set, and we just hit start. And we change it to automatic and let her rip. Out of bobbin, guys. Give me a second. I'm going to switch that out here and we'll be good to go again. Ooh. So it looks like I actually got a really bad spool of bobbin. I didn't even notice this until it started to wear down. See if I can get this to pay attention to it here. I'll take a photo, see if I can get a close-up of this, but I don't know if you guys can see that there. Might be too close here. Maybe if I kind of zoom out a little bit. Looks like it's still having trouble, but I'll take a photo and show this to you. It looks like the spool is bad, so I'm going to have to write to the company I bought it from and let them know that I got a wonky one here. So I'll replace it really quick. It wasn't fully out, but can't use a bad one. So I have 2 more of these to run anyway, so a new bobbin couldn't hurt. All right, 2 seconds here. All right, new bobbin is inserted. Got at least an inch or longer of pigtail. I'm gonna put this back in the machine here. And she should be purring like a kitten in a second. Alright, and I typically will back it up just a few stitches to make sure that it goes over anything I might have missed. And we'll have it take off again. That is the last of the logo. So next step would be to take it off, trim up any jump stitches, and then we're going to clean up the back stabilizer and it should be ready to go. So I'm going to move you back over to my stand over here and I'll show you what I do next. Alright guys, here it is. Here is the logo that we just stitched out. Beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead now and I take a pair of pretty sharp scissors. I like these for applique. They kind of get up underneath the stitches easier. And I'm literally just going to trim up the jumps in between here. And if I find I'm having trouble getting in there, I will sometimes take it out of the hoop and do this. But I like sometimes having it taut like this because if I have too much pliability, then I run the risk of actually cutting into the red stitches here. So this kind of gives me a little bit of buffer room, so I don't do that. Getting up underneath just the whites. Okay. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the hoop. A simple pull off, and from the inside as well, just pull it out. And then I'm going to sort of flip the sleeve out here. Not the whole thing, but you can see how nice and clean that looks. And then I'm going to use a pair of straight scissors, non-curved for applique, and I'm just going to trim around this. And how I do it is I actually pay attention to this side so I'm not cutting the jacket. And I cut, I'm a righty, so I cut with my hand out like this. And I do this because that way I know in the inside is where the shorter edge is. So I'm not cutting close enough to the jacket. And it just kind of gives it a nice clean edge there. And I rotate and do the same on the other side. Just a clean cut. Rotate again.
Mommy,
Yeah, my baby.
can I be in your video?
Can you be in my video? You already are. Say hi.
Hi.
All right. And then, sorry guys, had a picture there. There we go. All right. So cleaned up, this is how it looks, just, you know, right around the edges. And again, make sure you're paying attention to the side where you can see the coat inner liner, the interfacing of the liner, because if you can't, you run the risk of cutting into the coat, so be careful. Put it back in. And then I just double check placement. So I will zip the coat up and I will eyeball it, take a look at it and see how it looks. So, all right. So the jacket zipped up,
I
and
got it.
looking at it, that looks, I don't know if you can see this here, looks pretty nice and centered coming down.
That's enough.
This is, I can't get this sleeve here to stay. You can see it's kind of wrinkled a little bit, but there we go. All right, and then straight up to the sleeve. So I think that's a really good placement. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Another thing or tip that I can give you is if you don't like to free hoop like I did, and you really want to make sure you're 100% accurate, you can make sure that you're fully straight out like this, measure the width, and then measure 5 inches down, and that'll give you an exact center point when you're staring at it this way. Hooping, I think, just takes practice. Make sure, again, you know, even if you're using these mighty hoops, they do have, you know, these little holes in the center markings on each side and on the top and bottom. So as long as you're getting close to within those, you are pretty close to center. And that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, your quality is as good as your practice. So just keep practicing, keep giving it a shot in your spare time. Work on some designs or logos for fun, just to give it a go. Take an old sweatshirt and give it a chance. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop me a comment below, and I'll see what I can do about making a video. Thanks, guys.